40 hours after the worst gun massacre in U.S. history, I got in my car and I drove 275 miles from my home in Los Angeles to Las Vegas. I checked into the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino. I paid about $350 for a room on the 34th floor, overlooking Las Vegas Boulevard and the music venue that hosted the Harvest 91 Festival. My room was just 2 floors above and down the hall from the room rented by the shooter. From my room, I could see the broken windows on his room. Our view of the concert venue was nearly identical.
Be less stupid. Like the Facebook page to get new episodes every morning in your timeline.
Or twice a week, maybe 3 times.
I went to the Mandalay Bay because I knew that in the aftermath of yet another gun massacre, reactions were going to be cliched. A memorial would be set up where thoughtful people would drop off balloons and teddy bears and candles. Media figures would encourage us to donate to charities that would cover the medical expenses of the people who survived, and perhaps pay for burials for those who were murdered. Some people would go on Facebook and other social media and demand new gun regulations. Some people will go on Facebook and other social media and say, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Some people will say, shame on you for politicizing this tragedy. Now isn't the time to talk about guns.
What we're concerned about is that we're having a conversation when people are grieving. There used to be a common decency in this country where people paused from talking about policy. Unfortunately, with Dianne Feinstein and Michael Bloomberg, they want to exploit a tragedy from day one. It's shameful, but apparently that's the new normal, and that's why we're here talking to you today.
People on the left will be outraged and demand that we do something to prevent the kind of massacre that happened at the Harvest 91 Festival.
And I hope that Americans will step up and say, enough is enough. Congress, do something.
People on the right will repeat their mantra that the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. This outrage and debate would last for a few days, and then collectively we would all move on from the worst gun massacre in U.S. history, distracted by some other national outrage, political scandal, or must-win baseball game. I knew this pattern because we've been on the other side of these massacres before. Sandy Hook, the Pulse nightclub, Virginia Tech, San Bernardino, Fort Hood, Columbine, and way too many others. This time, I just could not stand for the same old bullshit. I thought that if I went to Las Vegas with my camera, maybe I could make a video that might make people reconsider what they thought about gun control, to make gun advocates recognize that we already have some restrictions on weapons. Like, for example, you can't own a bazooka, and that now it's time to add some new weapons to the list of things that individuals are prohibited from owning, and to help those opposed to guns recognize that the vast preponderance of gun owners use their weapons lawfully and don't massacre people. My hope is that this video could help reduce or prevent the frequent national fucking nightmares that have been happening.
Everybody keep your head down, go! Run, keep your head down!
And it's not an entirely stupid idea. Some of my videos have been pretty successful in the past. About 3 months ago, a video I made for a friend with traumatic injuries from multiple concussions from IED explosions in Iraq and Afghanistan got more than 500,000 views, and it raised more than $20,000 for him. The video that I made last month, where I documented how many people were really at President Trump's Phoenix rally, was seen by 5 million people. I made Trump so mad that there were only 4,000 or so people in the crowd, instead of the 15,000 that he said. He fired the guy in charge of rallies. So, with all of that great success now behind me, here now, my video that I hope will end gun violence in America. When I arrived in Las Vegas, the first thing I did was go and talk to a bunch of the people who work at the dozen or so gun stores within a mile of the Mandalay Bay Hotel. By 1:30 that afternoon, when I had arrived, these guys had already talked to 24 reporters each, and were pretty talked out. No surprise. They didn't want to make any statements on camera. But here's what I can say. All of the gun store employees that I spoke to were sufficiently outraged by the massacre. However, they were also steadfast in their resolve that guns aren't the problem, that the problem is bad people who use guns improperly. One gun dealer did talk to me about Nevada's gun laws. Did you know that in Nevada, any legal adult resident can buy a gun, or 2 or 10, or any number you would like at a time? All you have to do is pass a background check, which takes about 15 or 20 minutes. Then, once you buy that gun, or all of those guns, you can walk around with it or them anywhere you like, carried over your shoulder, in a holster, loaded. Just not in a hospital or a government building, a school or a playground, or a place where you might find children. I also found out how easy it is to stockpile weapons in Nevada. A person can buy a gun in one store today, and a different store, say, 2 days later, and from a third store a day after that. And that does not throw up a red flag to anyone. There are no clearinghouses or government offices where people would cross-check recent gun purchases to see if anyone is stockpiling them. The same is true for buying ammunition.
Go! 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 Everybody go! Go! Run! Keep your head down! Go!
Suppose you paid for your gun and your ammunition with your credit card on those multiple days where you bought guns. No one at MasterCard or Visa is going to notice that either. They're not set up to or authorized to monitor gun or ammunition purchases. I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't do that. I'm just telling you a fact that they don't. Next, I stood on the corner of Las Vegas Boulevard for more than an hour, and I kept looking from the street to the broken windows and back across to the concert venue. I tried to figure out what the fuck would possess a guy to massacre so many people. Because somehow we all think that if we know his motivation, that we can intervene the next time we see someone exhibiting similar ideas or motivations. Just 2 nights prior, right where I was standing, a horrific scene had unfolded as a sick motherfucker sprayed thousands of rounds of bullets on people who were just out listening to country music. I know a few guys who served during combat in both Iraq and Afghanistan. What they told me about being the target of gunfire sounded exactly like what I saw from the phone videos that CNN ran of people running away for their lives. How do gun owners reconcile this? That a night of country music in Las Vegas, America, can in an instant turn into a gun battle like in Fallujah or Baghdad. Of the many things that I thought about on that corner, the chaos, the death, the war on American soil, one thing in particular stands out. That this particular massacre could have been prevented if there was a law that prevented people from owning long-barreled rifles equipped with high-volume clips. The Mandalay Bay room where the guy was shooting from is nearly 500 yards from the concert. Those rifles with the long barrels that fire more powerful ordnances are designed to shoot long range and to still be deadly. Most handguns would not be effective at killing people so far away. For one thing, most handguns use magazines with just 8 or 10 rounds. The AR-15 that the motherfucker used had a magazine that could hold between 60 and 100 rounds. Plus he added this thing called a bump stock that made his semi-automatic weapon fire like it was automatic.
Backwards.
Meaning more bullets leave the barrel during the same amount of time, so he could kill more people. Also, the AR-15's rounds are designed to be lethal at long distance. The slug is heavier, more aerodynamic, and packed with more gunpowder. Handgun rounds are specifically designed to be deadly at close range. They lose a bunch of their effectiveness at long range. Their trajectory is less easily controlled over long distance, and the result of their impact is less effective the further it has to travel. Absolutely, if the motherfucker in the Mandalay Bay window had a dozen handguns, he could have killed a few people, absolutely. But he'd have to change magazines more often, which would slow him down. Plus, remember, handguns are more likely to jam as a result of shooting in rapid-fire succession.
You look at the gun, you see the stovepipe. Okay, you're going to remove the magazine and work the gun several times, making sure to clear the jam.
And the rounds he did get off would be both less accurate and less deadly, given the long distance. Now, gun advocates argue that if a crazy person wants to do something crazy, he'll figure out a way to do something crazy. Instead of a gun, he'd pack a car with explosives and drive it into the venue. The thing is, the venue is set up to deal with that kind of scenario. They have a fence around the concert. Barriers are set up at the points of egress. Cops are there to direct traffic. Then they say if a person uses the car to kill a bunch of people, then shouldn't we ban cars? The thing is that cars have an alternative purpose other than receptacle for explosives. Guns are designed to do one thing and one thing only: kill. Gun advocates also say things like, well, a crazy person could have had a knife. Yes, he could have. He could have run around a crowded concert and probably stabbed a few people. That's absolutely true. And a few people might have died. But again, that scenario has been considered. There are metal detectors at the front gate, guards inside the venue, and people are generally prepared to act and intervene to stop a madman with a knife. On Wednesday, President Trump arrived. While I stood outside with all the other media, I got to thinking again about how the fuck do you prevent battle scenes like in Fallujah? Because if we do nothing, it says that in exchange for millions of lawful gun-owning Americans to have near limitless access to weapons, we are prepared to tolerate the increasing number of horrific massacres that will occur when someone with the same limitless access to guns decides to murder concertgoers, nightclub patrons, office workers, and school children. Americans have talked ad nauseum about tiny fixes at the margins. Better mental health programs, silencers, magazine sizes, fingerprint-controlled triggers. Here's a few ideas that you probably haven't considered. Remember lawn darts? Lawn darts was a game where you threw a large, heavy dart up in the air and aimed it at a target way down over there. Well, these darts had heavy metal spears on one end, and well, a bunch of people threw them up in the air at the target, but they had terrible aim, and they came down and landed on the heads of children, killing them. It took a few years, but the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission banned the sale of lawn darts. This product, when you even attempt to use it properly, sometimes kills children. So with that, you have to ask yourself, how come guns, which when used properly, kill an average of 93 people a day in the U.S., isn't regulated like lawn darts? The answer is actually simple. The lawn dart people weren't a multi-billion-dollar industry. They didn't have a powerful lobbying group like the NRA advocating for them, and they're not protected by the Second Amendment. Also, when the Consumer Product Safety Commission was authorized during the Reagan administration, it was specifically prohibited from regulating or interfering with the use or sale of firearms. So here's something you can do. Add guns to the list of consumer products regulated by the Consumer Product Safety Commission. And that's not the only protection that gun makers have over other industries. In 1996, Congress passed the Dickey Amendment, a law that prevents people who are killed or injured with a firearm from suing the gun maker for negligence. Want to do something? Demand that Congress repeal the Dickey Amendment. Another law says that the NIH and the CDC cannot spend government money to research gun violence. How does having less information help people make decisions that affect their lives? You want to do something? Demand that this ban that prevents research be lifted so Americans can have better information about gun violence. If you drive a car, you need insurance. Why don't gun owners have to have insurance or to get a license? Too many gun deaths are the result of improper use or negligence. If people had to pay for insurance, perhaps they'd be incentivized to be more careful. Do you want to do something? Demand that gun owners have to pay for insurance. You can also demand that Congress pass laws that improve coordination among states to determine if individuals are stockpiling weapons. Those people should get a visit from law enforcement. You can demand that Congress pass a law that makes credit card companies report multiple gun purchases. None of these suggestions will prevent law-abiding gun owners from owning as many guns as they want for protection, hunting, and sport. However, they will each do a little bit of something to help us prevent future massacres.
Don't look! Run! Go! 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 Everybody go! Go! Run! Keep your head down! Go! Keep your head down! Go!
Be less stupid. Like the Facebook page to get new episodes every morning in your timeline.
Or twice a week, maybe 3 times.